So when we say body shape, height, appearance, again, we didn't go deep into what exactly they meant by that, but if you take care of yourself, you work out, you have good hygiene, right? Like we're looking for a package. We're not
Right.
looking for, like a unicorn or anything, right? We're
Yeah,
just looking at you see what I mean? So these are all
totally.
things that can be worked on. Witty, clever. I do believe that everyone in their own way is funny and clever. It just, but everyone has their own little like niche. Like I enjoy dark humor, to be honest with you, right? And it just so happens that my husband also has dark humor and does funny accents, which makes me laugh.
That's great. And
Yeah,
you don't, something with dark humor, right? Like it takes a little bit longer to figure something like that out, right? Because it's like, well, I don't know if I really
I
want to
know.
share that part, but
Totally. That's why it took us a month. I'm like, oh, you have that, Larry.
so what were the traits that maybe previously would have, I guess disqualified him, and then what did you realize you were missing or you weren't, you know,
Yeah,
clear about that made you a lot more attracted to him and knew that he was the one
yeah.
for you?
I'll tell you. So I used to date older men.
Okay.
Kevin is younger than me.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
he's younger by 2 years.
Hmm.
And that would have been a huge no-go in the past,
Yeah.
right? And then eventually I realized I'm like, why am I doing this? Like there's no who gives a shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? If they're a good person. So
Yeah.
I ended up removing that from my trait preferences. But again, just because you're removing it doesn't make it true. So you literally have to rewire your brain to tell yourself, hey, like there's no reason to have that trait preference, right?
Right.
There
I
is
guess
that.
there's a lot of with women, you hear what is it, 6'4" blue eyes, the trust fund, that whole song, right? Where it's like they have their qualifications, and those qualifications may not be actually grounded in any of your traits versus values, right? It just might be an
Yeah,
arbitrary thing, like you're describing. She's got to be
exactly.
older, but why? Like, does that
Yeah,
actually matter?
exactly. Why though?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So the other one was culture. So I'm Afghan. In my past, I've tended to like be more attracted to people who are of my culture, right?
Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
I grew up in Canada. I live in SoCal. I my English is just fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why am I looking for someone of my culture?
Right.
What's wrong with white people? So Kevin's
That makes it
white.
hard to date. There's not that many Afghani people in SoCal, right?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
like my pool is super narrow.
Right.
Like it's all great. I'm looking for older, like, so Kevin being a younger white man, and we met at the dog park, by the way. Our dogs met before us.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So we started talking. We started talking. I think the first time we talked was probably like, I can't remember, maybe 30 minutes, an hour maybe.
Hmm.
And the next day I didn't, well, he has his version of the story, but the real version is that he was looking for me. His version was that I was looking for him. Bullshit.
Right.
But so we saw each other the next day and we ended up talking more and he asked me out. He asked me out and we went out for dinner and it was very different to what I'm used to for a first date. Yeah,
You
it
bring
was
the
just
dogs?
different. No, we didn't bring the
Didn't-
dogs, no. But you
Yeah.
know what? Even after that first date, I think if it was any other situation, I would have told myself I don't see the alignment, and I
Okay.
probably would have cut it off almost right away.
Mm.
But he fit the values very well, and I knew that my trait preferences were not good,
Yeah.
or they weren't fair, they weren't reasonable, right? And also because we both used the same dog park, living in different buildings, but same dog park, there was exposure.
Yeah.
So the familiarity started to play in. And then eventually I started laughing. And to me, that was a big deal. So, of course, the attraction grew from there on. And yeah, so it turned out to be a match
But you met at the park, met again the next day at the park, just randomly, right? Same time, same place. Um,
randomly.
randomly, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then he asked you out, you guys went to dinner,
Uh-huh.
and then you continued going on dates, or you just kind of saw him at the dog park, and how did that
Both.
transpire? Okay.
Both.
Yeah.
So we would. coordinate our times to meet at the dog park. We were texting, and honestly, like, we didn't kiss until our 5th date.
Yeah.
So it was a very slow burn,
Right.
right? But again, so different to, like, what I've allowed myself to be exposed to, but I'm so glad I opened my mind,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I would say for anyone who falls into, I don't like using the word toxic. I would prefer to say, like, unhealed or lacking self-awareness, patterns
Right.
that lack self-awareness,
I like
right?
that. Toxic gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah, and it's mean. It's
Mhm.
mean. It's not
Right.
fair to the person. No one is trying to be malicious or a jerk or toxic.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm
Sometimes it
just
just
doing the
comes
best
from
with
not knowing any
yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But if it comes down to you keep falling into these patterns, do an inventory check of
Yeah.
the values and ask yourself if honesty and communications fit there. And if they don't, ask yourself why and ask yourself what's replacing it and whether those things that are replacing it, you're calling in a rock and you're calling
Right.
in someone who is willing to work on things with you, you know? It's so important because if I'm being honest with you, if I was to evaluate my past relationships before Kevin on reliability and communication, they're scoring very low,
Right.
right? If I had just done that assessment, it would have saved me a lot of time.
Sure. 'Cause I'm guessing,
Mhm.
like most people, you would just be looking for, is attraction there? Do I get those feelings, those butterflies,
Yeah.
right? And it's like that stuff, it doesn't, I mean, when I say it doesn't last, I don't mean it does, like attraction goes away, but the infatuation period,
Mhm.
all of your partner who's so exciting and mesmerizing, like everybody, you get to know them and it gets a little bit boring, but the boring doesn't
Mhm.
have to be boring. The boring,
Mhm.
it's like, I heard this quote from Mark Manson, who I think is very brilliant, but
Mhm.
he said, when you're in a long-term relationship, the sort of the fun and the adventure can diminish, but then there's a whole new sort of adventure and fun because you know the person so well, you get to be yourself even more so around them. And
Oh,
so it's
I love that.
a much deeper sort of vulnerability. And it's
Totally.
yeah.
And you're not self-conscious, you're confident and
Mhm.
it feels safe, feels stable, you know, they're not going anywhere. I absolutely love that. And it's the truth. It's
Yeah.
I at least from my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was always, worried about, I guess I had the Peter Pan syndrome that they talk about, right? I was
Mhm.
single a lot and worried that a relationship meant, you know, my freedom being taken away. But
Mhm.
it was all through this paradigm, and I wasn't doing any of the calculations based on the
Mhm.
metrics that you talked about,
Mhm.
which were really important. And then I did that, and then my wife showed up. So yeah,
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, I do believe that, like, it does come with experience and maturity. I do think that
yeah,
we've all fallen in the extreme emotional personality type bucket at some
right,
point, and then something clicks in our head, hopefully, like, "Oh, I should be more careful next time and make smart choices," you
for
know?
sure. So
Yeah.
is there anything else that you feel like we didn't touch on that would be really sort of juicy info for guys? I mean, we covered so much already.
I wouldn't say there's anything else because I feel like we covered so much, but I think I really want to emphasize the point of self-confidence
Hmm.
in sustaining a relationship. And, you know, these words get thrown around, right? Like again, you can't fall in love with someone else unless you love yourself. Ask yourself what your values are, grade yourself with each value and work on that because that will show in your body language. It will show in your own standards, by the way. You're less likely going to put up with shit if you feel good about yourself and you feel strong in terms of how what type of human you are and how you approach life. So I would just really like emphasize that part.
I love that, especially given the name of this podcast. So
Yeah, there you go.
that's a
There you go.
spot on
Yeah.
message. I love it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so tell us, where can people get your book, find out more, anything else that you want the listeners to know?
Sure. Well, you can find it on the Barnes& and Noble website or Amazon.
Awesome. So Zoe, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank
I
you.
learned
I had
so
a lot of
much.
fun.
I'm sure everyone listening. I'm gonna take the survey or whatever you call it, the questionnaire, and
Yeah.
sort of figure out where I'm at, and I'll have my wife do it.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
And
Uh,
actually, once you do the assessment, if you ever want to kind of like gain more understanding in terms of how to interpret it, just ask me. Ask me.
okay.
I know this stuff like the back of my
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll do that for sure.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Robbie. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Zoe.
Appreciate being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.